So, welcome Sushant to the podcast. How did they get there? Thanks for joining us. And let's start with do you want to quickly introduce yourself to our listeners?
I graduated in 2014. Post that, I worked for a year in Bank of America, and over there I worked mostly in the FX segment of things.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I just moved back to Mumbai, and I joined a startup of one of my friends, and I initially started with quite interestingly with design. I started working on Sketch and tried to make UI frameworks for different kind of apps. And post that, I tried to start up a grocery subscription based service.
Mm-hmm.
However, that didn't work out. And then I met some of my friends who had already raised some funds,
Yeah.
and they were working on something similar to a class pass. But so basically, they got all these gyms onboarded, and you could actually just whichever gym you want to go to, you could just go there, and you
Yeah.
just have to have one subscription. So they were like trying to kind of aggregate the subscription model
Yeah.
for the gym, and that's when we met, and they wanted to pivot, and we started off with this thing called Azuro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and since then it's been 5 years.
So, do you mind telling us a little bit about what Azuro does?
Yes. So what we figured over the course of last 5 years is that there's a lot of there's a lot of products in India that are focused towards the tenants. And so if you look at 99 Acres, Magic Bricks, Housing, these are all the classified platforms that are there in India. Uh, but there was nothing specifically designed for a house owner.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no product that catered directly to them and that was made for their needs, that was kind of tailor-made for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we figured that the entire thing is. And what we did was we wanted to make something as simple as a revenue generating app for an house owner. So a lot of these house owners, what they do is they invest in some property
Yeah.
for the reason, for getting a capital appreciation, say of
Yeah.
10%
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah.
And so the rental revenue generation could be about 2 to 3%, and that gives them a good 20 to 30% extra over what they're expecting.
Yeah.
So but them being so occupied with things in their life and everything, we wanted to make this experience hassle free, and that's where we thought that we could generate the revenue in which they're holding the property.
Mm-hmm.
And we will take care of everything in that period, right from marketing the property online on different platforms and different social media channels, then getting the tenant, then getting the background verification done for the tenant, and getting the tenant moved in, getting inspection done at regular intervals, and also like right from exit inspection to security deposit being returned.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Sean, because especially when you mention about how you tried some of your own startup idea and also joined a startup idea which then again pivoted into this. And just going back to as you mentioned, you graduated in 2014. You did which course did you do your degree in?
Yeah, so quite interestingly, I graduated and I did my master's in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
But over the years, I think I started learning coding when I was in 2015, right after college.
Yeah.
And that point when I was making that grocery subscription app.
Yeah.
And I was totally alone. There was no one who was there with me.
Yeah.
So right from operations to app development, everything I did on my own. So those were like really, really crucial 6 months. I used to code all night, and then in the morning I used to go and deliver grocery based on whatever people had posted on the app. It was like a one-man show, but I learned so much in that experience.
Yeah.
And
that's
like I can't imagine like I could have made an app in like 1 month, and like probably I learned a lot in that period.
That's very interesting, and especially shows that your mentality of actually trying stuff instead of just thinking about an idea, which not a lot of people actually able to do. But one question that comes to my mind is graduating from a place like IIT, and then you just within like 1.5 years you were actually part of a startup, and not just working there, but being like a co-founder, and even before that, you started doing stuff as well. So how did that come about? Because we see a lot of people trying to either go for like either bank jobs or just go into a different sector, or just go into an MBA. Whereas you took a very different path. So what motivated you to do that?
Yeah. So to be honest, it was not a very planned path for me. Things just worked out, and I think luck may also have a significant role to play in it. So I started at Bank of America in the mid of 2014.
Yeah.
And what I experienced was, over the course of like first 3-4 months, the learning curve kind of flattened out, and I just felt that I was not learning a lot, and whatever was there, the job had become kind of repetitive for me.
Yeah.
So whatever I was doing, I was just coming in every day, and I just felt that I was not learning a lot. So whenever that happens, I try to look back and I try to figure out like, is this how I want to spend the rest of my life, and like probably is this how I want to spend the next few years? And if that happens for quite some time, then you start to wonder like is this something that you look at your boss and the people who manage you, and you try to see yourself in their seat like 3 or 4 years down the line. And if you feel that it's not where you want to be, I think it's a good kind of indication that if that's not where you want to be, you should definitely think about other options, and you should try exploring other options. So that was the kind of hint that I took. And,
that's new, right? Very interesting, because not a lot of people start to think that while they should, and just trying to actually keep growing, because a lot of people get comfortable just being in the position they are. So I think that's a remarkable thing that you did as well. So now, Azure is no longer just a startup. It's existed for over 5 years. You guys got acquired by Square Yards as well. So how's that been? And, obviously, the role changes when you are a small team of startup, then being acquired by a company and being existing for this long. How has your role changed, and what did you have to do to, adapt with the changing nature of the company?
Yeah. So whenever a company gets acquired, especially a startup, there are a lot of concerns in a founder's mind. But thankfully, Square Yards was a company which was very aligned with the way we thought. And that's the reason we went ahead with it. We interacted with their founders and we talked to them for quite some time before, because it was a mutual decision to be made, right? You talk to the other people, you see if there's a mutual fit, and then you kind of move on with it. So we felt that the aim and the vision of Square Yards was very in line with what we were doing. They were into primary sales. So what they do is basically they go to developers, they tell them, you look into building the properties, we look into selling the properties. And whatever we sell, we'll take a certain cut out of it. So they were into primary sales, and what we felt that could funnel really well into property management. So people who are actually buying houses, they will actually look the next step would be looking for sources to manage their property.
Yeah.
And so everything that whatever their customer base was would actually convert into our customer base. And this would also give the mutual thing would also end up in like a constant touch point with the anyone who's a house owner, right? From buying the house to managing it to selling the house. So even into secondary, Square Yards was making foray into the secondary sales as well. Secondary sales is where a consumer who's bought a house again sells it to another consumer. And primary sales is where the developer who has made the house is selling the house for the first time, like right after it's constructed.
So that's fascinating, because you guys actually not just went with anybody trying to acquire stuff like yours, but being strategic in terms of what helped the vision of your company grow as well. But just narrowing down on that, is there anything specific that how your role in the business has changed from the initial part of the company to now?
So Square Yards is into so many businesses right now. They're expanding and they're growing at a really rapid rate. So what they were into primary sales. Now they have got, and they're across 8 countries. So they're in Canada, they're in UAE, they're in Australia. And my role didn't change dramatically because I'm still heading the product of the property management service. So it's just like a startup within a startup.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So basically, the advantage is now I don't have to look into the administrative part of things. Now I can just focus on building my product in peace, and everything, right, from HR to administrative services, are being taken care of by Square Yards. So that's like a really good fit that we had with Square Yards, and that helps us build the product in peace and focus on what we actually do are good at. So yeah.
So that's that's very good to know as well. So moving on, going to the second section of our interview and discussion. What would you say? Like, is there a book that you have given most as a gift, or any books that you would recommend for people that have influenced you or just opened your mind?
Yeah. So since my initial days, I've been into reading a lot. I still remember one of the key books like 5 years ago when I was actually starting up was called The Lean Startup. And it was a game changer at that point in time. I was just mind blown. I was like, dude, we think startup is like about being huge and like thinking big, but then I just saw that there are ideas that you should iterate fast. You should just go live faster, and these things kind of changed how I thought about building, and that's kind of a game changing experience for me. And I gifted this book a lot. However, there were some other books that were also like key turning points for me, and one of the book was called Crucial Conversation, and that I had read very early in life, and I used to gift around. And at a later stage, I think like 2 years ago, another book that was like really impactful was *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. And in fact, I became a really big fan of him, and I read everything post that.
So I've read 2 out of those 3 books as well. So Lean Startup and *Sapiens*, and the Homo Deus as well. And even my mind was completely blown by the concepts that was in those books. So it's interesting. I at least have some common books that I've read as well, and I've got a few collections behind me if you can see.
Yeah, I can see that. Idea Factory.
Yeah. That is actually about Bell Labs as well. So it is quite an interesting read as well.
Yeah.
So you earlier talked about how you started your own grocery business startup as well, and that didn't actually work out. So reflecting on that, is that or any other failure of yours or apparent failure something that really cherished because it set you up for later success? So do you have any favorite failures of yours up till now?
Yeah, so even though the grocery subscription startup failed, I still feel that startup kind of set me up like for what I could do later, and I actually believed in myself much more. And I still believe that idea was still really good because I talked to a lot of investors with that idea as well, and I talked to people at Matrix Partners, and we even got incubated in a few seed stage incubators, and still I actually know a few names today which are doing pretty well in that space. So there's this grocery subscription startup called Milk Basket. And especially in coronavirus times, those startups are like flourishing. Every day, every night, I actually sit down for like an hour and I just think about what are the stuff I'm going to eat tomorrow, what are the juices I'm going to drink tomorrow, and like what is the grocery that is missing. And even there's this another startup called Daily Ninja that's there. I still believe in that idea, but then failing at that point in time just kind of really helped me grow a lot. So I would definitely count that as like one of.
Oh, that's great. It's I think it's also very important that a lot of people see failure as a bad thing, but you learn a lot more from your failure than sometimes from your successes as well. And we can see the example with your success as well. So is there any unusual habit or an absurd habit that you love or have?
I think I've been told a lot by a lot of people that I'm really impatient. Like if I want something, I really go after it. Like probably like if there's some toy or if there's some gadget that's come up, or probably say an iPhone or say probably a Harry Potter book while I was like really young. I used to get them right on day one when they were launched. And a lot of people have mentioned, and a lot of times I've been disadvantaged because of being impatient. I blurt out things and I speak out of. But then over time, I've just experienced that it might be absurd, but it has helped me a lot as well. Like in a lot of times, instead of staying patient and waiting for something, I have actually done and gone ahead and built something really fast, and I've just pushed it to market really fast. So these things have helped me. So I still don't try to change it so much, but then that's the habit that I would like to kind of put this in the bucket.
That's very cool because iterating fast and being impatient. It's like I think it's part of the being in the tech sector, right? That you want all the latest toys and gadgets, and if you can utilize that concept to actually power through your ideas as well, that's amazing.
Yeah. So recently, I'm sorry to cut you out, but then recently, what I've there's this angel investor called Nawal, and I really follow him for his thought leadership. And he mentions that many times what you could do is you could utilize or channel this impatience, especially when you actually have time. Try to work on things that once your product, like probably say you're working on something and there's a 1 month time before it can get launched, try to think about ways in which you can improve in that period.
Nice.
Good.
Thanks for that as well. Is there any learning that you still carry from either school or college?
I think a lot of them, and some of the key things have been like the value of companion, like the value of having really good friends and really good connections. um, like even now when I go back and talk to my school friends and my college friends, like the warmth that I get, and the amount of, so there's one thing that I kind of learned very early in life is basically you reach a saturation point with some people. So even after say like a month, or like say even after years, when you talk to them, you pick up right at the same spot where you left off. And especially reaching those kind of saturation point with people is what I aim to do more in life, and try to be very open and be myself with people. So this is something that I've learned over the school, over my experiences in school and in colleges, and I really cherish like like bonds and the friendship that I have with them.
I think being genuine, I think, is a key part of that as well. Really. So, you've been in the tech industry and the startup industry, and you've been through that whole acquisition phase, and actually working with venture capitalists as well. Do you see any stereotype or bad recommendation that exists in this area? That that it always get told, but actually it's not true.
I'm sorry if I'm giving a very diplomatic answer here, but then I actually feel that over the years I have seen so much of extreme volatility. Like one day I've been feeling that the startup will be like really huge and will become a unicorn, and right like an hour later I might actually feel that this is not going to work out, and we are going to go bankrupt, and we don't know what to do with life, and everyone's going to come over us, and these employees are going to lose their job. So this extreme volatility is what I've learned, and that's why what's happened with me is whenever I see something that's drastically different from what I actually believe in, I have switched sides so often that I genuinely start believing that even though I believe in this side at the moment, I may actually go to the other side. So that's why I actually do not have very strong kind of opinions about something being wrong. But then I do have like probably some weakly held opinions, like probably, but nothing very strong at the moment. And that is because I've been wrong so often that I just feel that, it's been a humbling experience.
That's a way to learn, right? So, obviously, you have busy days coding and managing the work and stuff. Is there any point, you become overwhelmed or unfocused? And if you do, is there anything that you do to get back into focus?
Yeah, that happens quite frequently, and in fact, I get worried when that doesn't happen uh, because if you're not getting overwhelmed for a long time, that means you're not doing something that's kind of out of your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And I think that happened to me quite recently when I was working on this new technology that came out. It was called GPT-3,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually was following OpenAI for a very long time. And when they launched it, I actually talked to their CTO, and I got access to it pretty early in the
Yeah.
day. And I actually within a few hours I was able to build an app around it, and it kind of became really viral, and I was kind of overwhelmed. Even Facebook's head of AI saw that there were a few flaws with it. So basically, whenever an NLP algorithm is released, they actually try to see the toxic behavior around it.
Yeah.
And some of the tweets that was generated by the app was slightly toxic, and that kind of went out in public, and a lot of people were talking about it. And I still know that there were a few nights that I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, but then those were experiences which I did for the first time, and that kind of have made me even stronger to go through those kind of experiences in future.
Yeah.
But I genuinely do not try to fix or try to get back into focus. What I try to do is I know it's a feeling. I know I'll get used to this. So I just give it some time. I say like, let's wait for 2-3 days and then I'll settle in this particular phase. Say right now, uh, and then you get a kind of get used to it. So everything that happens in life, uh, everything big that happens in your life, say you get through some very good school, or say you get a very good job, after a while you become used to it,
Yeah.
and that is like a normal mode of life. And so that is what happens with me. So whenever I become overwhelmed, I know that I have kind of stepped uh, another step
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
ladder.
Right.
And
Right.
now now it'll take a while to stabilize, and then again things will become normal.
Cool. Um, if you were able to go back and give advice to your younger self,
Mhm.
knowing what you know today, what would that advice be?
One advice that I'd give myself is to be less self-conscious. I believe that I was really, really self-conscious. I always used to think about, should I ask people for help? Should I tell them? Like
Yeah.
if I used to find something really good, I never used to go out and tell people that.
Yeah.
Right now, what I've realized is, uh, like whenever you find something that's good, or whenever you find a product, we always feel that there will be so many other people who will find this good, and they will talk
Yeah.
to that people and
Yeah.
compliment that people. But that doesn't happen. Whenever you feel that something is really nice or someone's done a good job,
Yeah.
go ahead, tell them.
I
And
think
same,
that's something that I've seen as well. The more you share, the better it becomes,
definitely,
and you get so much more learning just by open and sharing than just
yeah,
trying to hide everything and be secretive
yeah,
about
definitely,
stuff as well.
yeah.
Uh,
Communication has always been the key, man.
exactly.
Like the more you communicate, the more you learn.
And uh, if you know the current situation of COVID-19 and people graduating now or getting out of jobs today, um, if they were looking to either get into a field like in the industry like yours, or they were looking to switch careers into similar industry, is there any advice you would give them?
Yeah. So there was this book by I think some author named Epstein, which was about being a generalist versus being a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a generalist.
Yeah.
You can't specialize into certain things and think about becoming a good entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur will face so many different kind of problems.
Yeah.
And being a generalist kind of actually helps, because you can apply the solution from one domain to another. And this is what I have actually experienced is, many times you connect the dot backwards. What
Yeah.
happens is you are learning something right now, and you are always worried that whether I should learn it in so much depth, or should I actually just make do with it. But you should always try to learn as many things as possible at a given point in time, because at a later point, when you'll actually be in a very good situation, you can capitalize and you can move really fast, and all the things that you've learned in the past will actually help you achieve that at a breakneck speed.
Yeah.
You will be able to capitalize on whatever idea that comes up, and you'll be able to build really fast, and you'll be able to achieve it.
Nice. So just before we finish the interview, Shant, one last question. So we talked about, how you got to where you are today. Uh, where do you want to get to now?
Yeah, that's a question that I never gave a lot of thought to. But then I definitely feel that building and creating things have always been exciting for me.
Hmm.
And I would definitely want to build and impact more people. And I really believe in the promise of AGI and building general level intelligence.
Hmm.
Whatever we have today is ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, and GPT-3 is sort of one thing that's kind of taking us closer to a general intelligence.
Yeah.
And I would want to be a really integral part of anything that helps humanity achieve AGI. And
Nice. So that's been great, Sushant, to hear these things from you, and for your just sharing of all your thoughts and your experience as well. It's great having you on this podcast. I'm so sure our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing from you as well. Any last thoughts before we finish?
all the best, man. I really hope that my experiences help as many people as possible. And to everyone who's listening, and to anyone who has doubt about anything building, I would be happy to help you out with in any way that I can. And please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, on my email,
Yeah,
or on my
I'll
website.
share those details in the details of this episode as well. Thanks, Sushant. Hey listeners, hope you enjoyed the episode. Would love to hear your feedback in the comments section, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe.